Hi, this is Bill Cecil, and welcome to episode number 30 of my podcast series, Best Year Ever or Bust. The podcast series designed to help make every year as a teacher your best year ever by helping you help your students make it their best year ever despite any and all challenges you may encounter throughout the school year. Best year ever or bust, baby! That's the winning mindset I've been trying to help you and your students to develop and to use. It's that 100% all-in mindset that no matter what, we're going to make it happen. This in every school year. And again, it's just not for school. We're hoping that your students will learn how to make this every year in school and beyond their best year ever throughout their lives with the things that they're going to learn, the success strategies you're going to help them to learn this year working with you in your classroom. So, as always, first thing I want to do is I want to thank you for continuing to be the heroes you've been called to be. And I want to thank you for taking time to take a listen to this podcast series. Remember, you make a difference every day. This is a tough profession. I'm never going to ignore that. For sure, I know how tough it is. But it's a profession like no one else has, in my opinion. It's one of the greatest professions you can be in. And you are making a difference in so many lives. So remember, you're a hero. And so that is one message I've been trying to drive home to you throughout these 30 episodes. So please don't forget that. Also, I want to thank all of you that are not just listening, taking time out of your busy day to listen, but taking that extra time to share it with others in the profession, right? It takes a healthy village, right, to make our profession really, really stand out. And so it's a team effort. And so I appreciate all of you that are helping me spread that word to others so that they can work to make every year their best year ever as well by helping their students make it theirs. And since this is the last episode of at least this first season, what I want to do is I do want to thank a couple more people that I'd be remiss if I did not take the time to thank them because they had such an impact on not only this podcast, but also my teaching career and best year ever. So first one, I got to thank Dan Pappas. Dan Pappas hired me. He was my first principal. I had great principals throughout my career, but he was amazing. He had a building that was such a team, and he led with his heart, and he was a guy that worked hard, but he was a great first principal because he took a lot of time to mentor me and encourage me. He was the one that told me even at one point I was working too long after school and getting there too early, that I need to start cutting back and go out and find a life because I was new in this community and I really had no life outside of the school. So he said, you got to go out and find other things to do, which I did. Had a big impact on my career. It's where I discovered taking a theater class, and it turned into me actually taking many more classes and then also teaching at night for 10 years at LCC, some intro to theater and improv. A lot of it I took back into my classroom, which really helped build team, get kids to take risks with their learning, and also to just, engage more in our learning. So I'll talk more about that if I do another season of these, which I'm really starting to lean towards just having this conversation. So, but Dan Pappas was the guy that hired me. He fought for me to come in, and so he was my first principal, and I got to thank him. Also, I want to thank the people that worked closest to me at the end of my career because they were using Best Year Ever right next to me, and it was Nancy Dombrowski and Denise Karen, two sixth grade teachers, right next to my room, and we're fifth grade, and so they were using it, and it reinforced to my fifth graders what the sixth graders were doing, and it reinforced to their kids hopefully what my kids were doing, and a lot of my kids ended up going into their classrooms because their parents wanted them to have another Best Year Ever, so they requested them, and so that was a big help. And there are other people in my building, by the way, I got to mention real quickly. Bernard Schroeder, Arden Lemire, and Don Dimmick were also people using Best Year Ever, and it just reinforced to me that they liked the program. They thought it had some merit and it was making a difference. So especially early on, it encouraged me to keep going and share out with more and more people out of my district and my building. And so I want to thank them. And but Laura Smith, I got to give a huge thank you to. She was my last teaching partner. I had several throughout my career, 31 years, a long time. I had several partners. Many of them were amazing partners. I mentioned Pam Ogle before, but Laura Smith was my favorite partner only because she really jumped right in. She was a new teacher when she came in, a relatively new teacher, and she heard about my program, and I wasn't trying to force it on her, but I was telling her about it, and she just jumped right in. She got the playbook, she started to learn the plays, and she was working on the same procedures, the same rules. I mean, even though we taught different subjects and we had different styles of teaching, she was more like jazz, I was more like rock, right? Just the energy level, but she was so smooth and so good, and she found a way to show me that Best Year Ever does work for different teachers and different styles of teaching, but she made our two teams a powerhouse the 14 years we worked together, and I just felt so lucky to get to know her and call her a friend and get to know her family, and so I want to thank her. And lastly, I want to give my wife a big thank you, huge thank you. She not only is the top teacher in our household, she is the number one teacher in the Cecil household by far. And I went to her a lot for advice and for ideas and strategies, and she never failed, and she was my sounding board. But she's also been a huge fan of Best Year Ever and used it as well. But she has been the editor of this podcast series. And believe me, without her help right now, you would have stopped listening long before now, because each episode would have been at least an hour, hour and a half, because I swear I ramble. I get excited about this stuff. I forget to stay on script sometimes, but also I do a lot of ums and ahs and, whatever in betweens. And so, now she scolds me when she does that. She just says, "Now, Jimmy, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Jimmy?" She goes, "You use Jimmy a lot in the podcast series." So it's kind of a running joke why I picked Jimmy as a name that was kind of the troublemaker or not always doing the right thing. I think it's because I never had a Jim or a James in my class, but I felt that was a safe name. But she'll now say, "Jimmy, you got to cut it shorter." And so I'll just laugh. So I just want to thank her. She's also my best friend and love of my life. We've been married almost 32 years. Our anniversary is this week. So I can't thank you enough, honey. So I love you. All right, let's get on with this. So to get started with this last episode, at least of this season. But what I want to do tonight is I want to share with you 3 quick messages. What I hope you'll take away from all this. I'm trying to summarize a little bit what I've been trying to do in this episode for these last 29 episodes leading up to this, but also just to kind of give you some more messages to think about to help you take on these challenges throughout your career and hopefully keep going. Because that's, as a mentor to you, that's what I'm trying to do for you as well. And I hope you have many, many other mentors. But this is what I'm trying to give to you. So the first message tonight that I want to share with you is that now is a great time to be involved in education. Believe it or not, I started sharing that message way back in 2003, 2004, while serving as Michigan Teacher of the Year. It was a message that I wanted to share with teachers all over the state, and I spoke, I had the opportunity to speak to over hundreds of different audiences, thousands and thousands of teachers throughout that year, if you add them all up. And I wanted to send a message of hope and determination that, what we're doing is so important, that we can do this, especially if we unite together and really figure out what we're trying to do and just keep people going. And so I was trying to be that cheerleader to go out and try to lead the team for 1 year to let them know that, I believe we're so good in this state. We have so many good teachers, like I'm sure you do in many of your states or wherever you're living. There's a ton more good going on in education than bad. And it's because of the people that are in those classrooms every day. There's a lot of other supporting players, but those are the people that are in the trenches every single day trying to make it happen, like you. And so I wanted to share with them the message that now is a great time to be involved in education. And during that time, the reason I went through that is because we were under a lot of challenges, just taking on a new program called No Child Left Behind, which we all were for, but the program itself was very complicated and very confusing, especially to be thrown at you, and lots and lots of information. And so we're dealing with those growing pains and going through that adjustment. And so when I went out, I would share that message, and I'd be standing in front of a large audience, and I would say, "Now's a great time to be involved in education." And right away, I'd see people like their eyes would get real big, or you'd hear a snicker, almost like a sarcastic snicker, and they're like, "Are you kidding me?" Or people leaning over, and you could literally see them like whispering to each other, and I could imagine they were only saying, "This guy's crazy. What's he talking about? He's just talking about some of the challenges that we face and all that." And now he's telling us now's a great time to be involved in education. And that's precisely why I believe now is a great time to be involved in education, I would tell them. It's because we had a chance to create a moment in education that people would talk about for years and years and years to come. And so, believe it or not, and I have to say this before I go any further, if I had the same opportunity today to go out and speak to hundreds and hundreds of different teachers around the state or around the country, and thousands and thousands of teachers within a year, that would be the same message I'd want to get out today, that now is a great time to be involved in education. And I know, now you really got to be going, "Oh my gosh, is this guy crazy?" But hear me out. Before you say that, what I want to do is I want to help explain why I believe now is a great time to be in education. And like always, I want to share with you kind of a story or a connection that you can make. I want to talk about my all-time favorite sports team ever. And in my opinion, this was the greatest team that ever suited up to take the field, or in their case, to take the ice, because this was the 1980 U.S. Olympic hockey team. The 1980 U.S. Olympic hockey team. We're talking about over 40 years ago. I was in high school at this time. I told you, dude, I'm old. But anyways, this was the most amazing. And I'm not even a hockey player. I'm not even a hockey fan necessarily. I might turn it on once in a while during the playoffs or Stanley Cup, but I'm not like really glued to hockey. I don't know any of the hockey players' names even, but I know the teams and so whatever. But I love this team. I love this team so much that I even went out and bought a movie that was made about them called Miracle. It's about the Miracle on Ice, which is what they became known for. But there's a scene in this movie, and it's a true movie, basically, because it was about the 1980 U.S. Olympic hockey team. And there's a scene in this movie takes place in the locker room. The U.S. hockey team, which was made up of a group of college kids at that time. It wasn't pro players, it was college kids. And they were preparing to take the ice against the 4-time defending gold medalist team of giants from the Soviet Union. This was the same group of professional players, by the way. They're made up of professional players, not amateur college players, professional players. And this is the same group of giants that had annihilated this same team they were about to play 4 days or a few days before the Olympics started, an exhibition match to kind of give them more practice time on the ice and things like that. But they got annihilated. And here they are in the locker room getting ready to take them on again. By the way, this is also the same group of giants that had beaten the NHL All-Star team earlier that winter. They beat our team of professionals, our best of the best, on one team. And so this team literally had a reputation for being just a machine, a winning machine. So in this scene, Herb Brooks, which is played by, if I remember, Kurt Russell, in this scene, Herb Brooks is talking to his team, trying to prepare them to take the ice. And he knows, obviously, that they've been annihilated by this team earlier. And so he's trying to find a way to get them to prepare for this massive challenge before them, right? They have to take on this team of giants that already had beaten the NHL All-Star team. So instead of reminding them of how great this team was that they were about to take on and how big this challenge was, he did something completely different. He flipped the switch and changed their mindset from fear to expectation. He got them excited to take the ice, because what he did was he started to give them a pregame talk, and he said a quote in there that I just really, really love, that you could tell this was going to go in a different direction. Instead of trying to, you got to go out there, guys, you can't make a mistake, this team is, and getting them more nervous, he could tell they're already nervous. So he's trying to calm them down and build their confidence. So he starts off his conversation with them. He walks in the locker room, and he just walks in quietly, doesn't say a word, taps somebody on the shoulder as he walks by him, and the team's looking at him, and he pauses, and then he says, "Great moments are born from great opportunity." Oh, I love that quote. Great moments are born from great opportunity. And what I love is that he used that quote to, like I said, flip the mindset from them thinking about this massive challenge to getting fired up, to get them to want to take the ice, to go out there with fire in their bellies. And so what he did was he reminded them that they had to do amazing to get to this point, that they had earned an awesome opportunity, not a challenge, but an opportunity before them to seize this moment they had earned with all their hard work and sacrifice to take down this winning team of giants. He told them this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that they'd earned, and this was the night. And he told them, now what I want you to do tonight is I want you to go out there and take it. And by the time he got to that point where he's telling them not just to go out there and try to play with them, but to take it from them, to seize this moment, they were fired up. And as soon as they took the ice, you could see it. There was something special about this team. In fact, I don't want to ruin the end of this movie for you if you want to go out and buy it, but I can't help but tell you, they beat the Soviets and they went on to beat Finland the following weekend to win the gold medal. But you would have known that anyways, because I already told you they were the Olympic gold medal hockey team. So I don't think I totally ruined the movie. You got to watch how they did it. But anyways, when they went out there, they took the lead and they stayed in the lead. And even at the end, it was very close. It was 4-3 with only seconds left. And you're thinking, they've just slayed this giant. And you're still holding your breath. I remember I was in high school watching this at work. I was working in a nursing home at that time in the kitchen, and the TV was on, and we're all glued to the TV. And even the people that were in the dining room eating, the older people, were watching this game. And you could hear Al Michaels, the announcer's voice. And with seconds left, we're all just can't believe this is happening. We're glued to the sets. And he declares that famous saying that people remember over and over again. Al Michaels says on TV, "Do you believe in miracles?" Yes. And just as that, the time goes out, you see the sticks fly up in the air. The players are just mobbing each other in the corner, celebrating. The stands are going crazy because this was in Lake Placid in the United States, no less. And it was just happening all over the country. Everybody was watching this game. It was massive. So it was such an incredible moment they created that night. It's been over 40 years, and people still know exactly where they were, like I just described to you, when that game was happening. And we still talk about it. And people that never even knew about them have heard about it and have found it through the movies or documentaries that have been made about them, the many books that have been written about them. They've gone out and been paid, the players to go out and speak, members of that team to go out and speak for many, many years. They all lit the Olympic torch. They gathered again, the ones that were still alive and able. They went up there to light the Olympic torch to start the Olympics. But that's how well known this team is. And so it's just amazing that they created this great moment in sports that it went beyond sports in our country at that time. If you go back and look at the history, we were struggling as a country. We had many things, I hate to say, but kind of similar to what our country's going through today. There was a lot of division in our country and a lot of fear and a lot of whatever, unrest. And this team somehow bonded us together, and it became something that everybody was watching and everybody was talking about, and everybody was hugging each other and celebrating over when it happened and just bonding. And it was so good for our country as well. Here's what I'm trying to tell you. And I'm not belittling it or taking away from it in any way. Believe me, like I said, it's my favorite team of all time. But it was a moment in sports. It was a sports moment. So I want you to take a second and think about the amazing opportunity we have in education today to create a truly great moment in education that will have a positive impact on our country and world for many, many decades to come. Look, there's nothing more important than what teachers and educators do for a living. There may be others that are equally as important, but nothing is more important than what we do. And that's why I believe that we have a great opportunity to create a great moment in education that people will be talking about for years and years and years to come. So I'm going to say it again. Now is a great time to be involved in education. I know some of you listening may be shaking your heads, rolling your eyes, and thinking, Bill's crazy, especially with the tsunami of challenges you face in teaching today, right? I was saying this back in 2000, 2003, or 2002, 2003. And yeah, there were a lot of challenges then. And I'll grant it, I will give you are facing more challenges today. There's so many things going on with, mental health concerns for students and teachers right now, dealing with discipline problems in the classroom, students being bullied or isolated, feeling alone. The kids right now are suffering from, or students are suffering from poor social skills and coping skills. And increased violence in our schools is another one. Teacher burnout's another big concern. Poor attendance by teachers and students. I've heard of teachers leaving the profession, many actually, in mid-year. And it's just, this goes on and on and on. And yet, not despite of it, but because of all these challenges, it's exactly why I believe now is a great time to be involved in education. Why? Because of message number 2. Great moments are born from great opportunity. Great moments are born from great opportunity. This is a great opportunity for us to create a moment that people are going to be talking about forever. And the best part is that each of you are players in the game right now. You are not standing on the sidelines like many are, watching and pointing fingers in going, well, let me tell you what I would do if I was a teacher. This is what teachers need to be doing. This is what education needs. No, you are the players in the game right now. And individually, or better yet, collectively, you can seize this moment. You can do it by yourself, or you can get others involved like I was able to do in my school, and hopefully we can get to do in districts and around the states, around the country eventually. Why not? But we can seize this moment. And if at the bare minimum, at least you can seize this moment. And each day you can go in and seize that day. You can seize that new month, seize that new semester, and seize each new school year. You can seize this opportunity to take on any and all challenges using the information I've shared throughout this podcast series. And like spider webs working together, if you can work with others, you can tie up each and every line in your web and create your great moment of helping to make every year the best year ever by helping your students make it their best year ever. Thus creating our great moment in education. Like the team of underdogs on the 1980 U.S. Olympic team was able to do against the winning machine of giants from the Soviet Union on their way to winning the gold medal. I gave it away again, sorry. And creating their greatest moment. You can do this. You can do this. We have to do this. That's how I would end each of those speeches when I would go out and start off with, now's a great time to believe in education. But again, you got to focus on this second message, and that is great moments are born from great opportunities. Instead of letting all the challenges that all of you are facing, to let those discourage you and hold you down, seize this opportunity to create our great moment in education that will become a historic moment for years and years and years to come. I mean, think about it. If you entered this profession and everything was going great, and you get through this profession the entire time and everything's going great, and you leave this profession at the end of your teaching career and everything's still going great, that'd be nice. That'd be easy. But you wouldn't have a hell of a story to tell your grandkids about someday. You wouldn't have something to carry with you for the rest of your life that you're so proud of and that you were a part of. You're an actual member of that team that helped create this great moment. I don't believe it's that crazy. I just think that you have to focus on two opportunities that I see before you that I've been talking about for the last 29 episodes. And that's number one. Start investing time to help address the basic needs of your students by creating a positive, safe learning environment where everyone supports each other while striving to get better to make it the best year ever. I mean, you think about it. School connection I've been talking about, where kids do better if they feel like their teachers and other adults in the building and students care about them as people, but also as learners. To have a sense of belonging. I talked about the power of team, tapping into the power of team, shared mission, right? Everybody aiming for the same target to work together to make it the best year ever. And to get your team members to believe in you as the leader of their team, but more importantly, to get them to believe that they can achieve. And you're going to give them the tools to do that. How? With the 3-word success formula that I talked about in an earlier episode: attendance, attitude, and effort. But it also includes attitude, belief that you can achieve, and also persistent, that you're going to be like Edison. You're not going to give up, and you'll put in the extra effort when needed. You put in the effort, right? It's not so much about talent. It's about creating your talent to be that you work hard, you show up, and you have the right attitude, and you don't give up until you get the results you want. And if you make mistakes, you learn from those mistakes. This isn't really that difficult. It doesn't cost a whole lot of money, if any. Right? Well, I do hope you invest in my book, or maybe even some of the coins that really can help make a difference to give your kids that tangible touchstone to keep them going with the doable plan. But my point is, this isn't rocket science. I don't think we're putting our attention on this first. We have to put these first before we go after the bigger goal, which is to have our kids soar through their academics and to have great futures and, to solve problems in the future for all of us and to leave our schools with a love of learning. But this is important. And step number 2, we have to get our parents involved. We have to get our community members involved, which I talked about in this podcast series. It's not that difficult. We have to do this. What I want to do, I'm going to stop there for that. I'm going to start to wrap this up. I'm going to share one more story with you that I think provides the third important message I want you to take with you from this podcast series. And I told you at the beginning that I was going to come back and talk about the 2 greatest teachers I've ever had, my mom and dad. I talked about my dad in the last episode, and tonight I want to talk about my mom. I'm going to share a story with you. And I told you in episode number 22 when we were talking about Muhammad Ali and fighters, and about how you got to come out. This is a tough profession. You got to get up off the canvas, keep getting up, right? And we were I was using boxing analogies, and I used Muhammad Ali. I mentioned him and said that his nickname was the greatest, meaning the greatest fighter of all time, which I would definitely agree. I think he's probably the greatest boxer of all time, at least that I've seen in my lifespan and or lifetime so far. And dude, I'm old. It goes way back. So, that's a pretty good list of boxers to choose from. And he was by far the greatest fighter. But I told you I would share a story to you about the greatest fighter of all time I felt. And I'm going to share that story with you right now. And that story is about my mom. To explain this story, or to get into this story, I want to explain that my sister-in-law has this plaque that she bought when she was visiting my wife and my family, my son and our dog at that time. But they were visiting us up north and at our cottage, and they live in the Chicago area, and they were up visiting us, and it was a rainy day, so we went into Traverse City to, get out of the rain for the day, and we were doing the shops. That's what everybody does, goes has lunch, and then walks through the shops on the main strip of downtown TC. But anyways, in one of the shops, my sister-in-law picked out this plaque, and the plaque had a great message on it. It said, "Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning how to dance in the rain." Let me say that again. Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning how to dance in the rain. And if I remember correctly, By the way, she bought this plaque and hung it in her kitchen. But if I remember correctly, she bought this at the time, the same time that my mom was in a courageous fight against cancer. Now, if you remember, I told you in episode number 22, again, I was talking about Muhammad Ali, and he is a great boxer, but I never saw anybody fight like my mom during her courageous fight with cancer. I remember when she got the news, she was in her 60s, mid to late 60s, she got the news that she had cancer. It floored all of us. You talk about a boxing analogy, it's like we all got knocked down to the canvas. We were knocked down. It came as such a shock. My mom was still in her 60s, such in good shape, always out playing golf, tennis. I mean, she was very active, very healthy, always had been very healthy. And so this caught us all by, it just knocked us down, like I said. But here's where the story gets really interesting. My mom was the first one to stand back up. And when she was first diagnosed with cancer, she stood up and she basically told us all, hey, that's enough. Let's go. It's time to get up. She said, I'm going to fight this thing. All right. And I'd love to have you guys fight with me on this because I plan to beat this. All right. I'm strong. I'm tough. And she is. Toughest person I know, my mom. Best fighter I know, my mom. And I don't mean physically. I mean just mentally. She's tough. So, like I said, my mom is the strongest one in the family. And so she was the first one to get up and she said, I'm going to fight this. I'm going to beat this. So get off the floor and join me in this fight. She said, but I have 3 rules if you're going to fight with me. And that is, number 1, you never ever talk about an expiration date on my life again. The doctors had given her only a few months to live, and she was upset with that because not that they'd given her a few months, but that they had put an expiration date on her life. They told her what the bar was, and in her mind it was way too low. And that's the fighter in my mom. And so she basically told us and her doctors, don't ever do that again. I don't ever want anyone to talk to me about my expiration date or when you think how much time I have left. I'll dictate that. I'm going to fight this. So I don't need anybody telling me something like that when, my numbers and your numbers are way off. So, and they respected that. And so did we. And then number 2, she said, you can give me all the support you want, but never give me your sympathy. All right. I don't want you coming to visit me for however long left I have to live on this earth. And that is for you to call me and always sound sad, or to look at me with sad eyes, or to be just watching me like, oh, Mom, we miss you. I'm not gone. I'm here. She said, rule number 3, what you can do is whenever you call to talk to me or come visit me, I want you to talk about life, not about death or what I'm going through or what's going on. If I need to give you an update on my cancer, believe me, your father and I will talk about it, and either he or I will talk to you privately or as a group together about this. But we will keep you in the know. But I don't want this to be the theme of every visit or phone call. All right? So when you talk to me, follow my lead. I'm going to talk about life. I'm going to talk about what I'm doing. I want to know what you're doing. I want to hear about what your dreams are. I want to share some of my dreams of what I want to be doing. Or, I want to be talking with my grandchildren and laughing and playing with them and not sitting there, everybody looking at me, treating me like I'm fragile, I'm about to break. So, we're going to enjoy this life. All right. So we don't talk about cancer. We enjoy life when we talk about those things. And so she made us follow that rule as well. And so for the next 4 years, my mom, like that quote said, she danced in the rain. Even though at times she lost her energy, she lost a lot of weight, and my mom was fit to begin with, so she got really thin. And even at times she lost her hair. My mom continued to dance in the rain. She was playing golf and tennis anytime she could with my sister and her friends. And she was still playing bridge and cards with her friends, laughing and telling stories, sitting together, enjoying each other's company. She was going to movies with my sister because my dad didn't like to go to movies and she lived in town, so they would go see movies together. She'd visit with all of us as much as possible, as much as we could get to town, or, she couldn't really travel as much, but as much as we could get there. But she visited with us on the phone often, but, personally as much as we could. But every time we got there, she would just, like I said, play with her grandkids, and she would just be talking and sharing stories and laughing and just having fun. And it was always positive. And she did this for 4 years. She was in this fight, and not 4 months, 4 years. And she even got to see her 10th grandchild that was named after her, Anna, in the name of my mom. It's my sister's first and only child so far, Anna. She danced right up to the very end. And by the time she was getting close to death, it happened pretty suddenly. I remember just a week before things took a turn for the worse very quickly. We were on the phone laughing. I was telling her some funny story, and she was laughing so hard. I just loved my mom's laugh, and she was laughing, and it made me feel good, and I was laughing. And that was my last phone call with my mom, something I'll never forget. But all of a sudden, when she got sick, she was getting weaker and weaker. We could see that. You could see her getting thinner, but she never complained. She never once complained or told us how bad she was feeling. She always just was tough, and she'd smile and she'd laugh as much as she could. She just kept dancing. She was dancing in that rain. I'll never forget that. It's like her last thing on earth was she created a legacy to show us that as bad as things get, and I can't think of anything getting worse than this. You know, she kept living, and not just living, she was dancing in the rain. She was living life to its fullest that she could, but she really sent a message to all of us that she was trying to send to us our entire lives when things would get bad. She'd say, okay, that's enough time feeling sorry for yourself. Now, what are we going to do about it? Come on, let's get to work. Let's get going. And she would talk about problem solving or solutions, or what the goal was, and focus on the positives. And she would relish in the fun times and just recharge herself. I've talked in this podcast series about trying to take something positive from my approach to life, especially after watching my mom. It just reinforced it even more, and that is, I'm going to take something from every challenge I have, as bad as it is. We lost my mom almost 10, 11 years ago now, and it's still painful to talk about. It's always, every time I think of my mom, it's usually about how strong she was, and I always remember her in tough times. And so I always try to walk away with something like my mom was able to do, and find something positive to hold on to while you worked through the challenge or fought the challenge, right? Or she'd embrace the challenges that she could, as much to say, I'm not going to let you dictate what's going on. I'm going to do what I set out to do. And she did. She lived an amazing life. So this still impacts me today. So why I'm sharing it with you is this. This is the third message, right? I want you to, like the quote says, life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning how to dance in the rain. It's about learning to dance in the rain, right? Too often in education, you hear people always complaining, pointing fingers, complaining about, oh, the copy machine's not working. Oh, it's going to be a long day. Oh, today Jimmy messed up again. Wouldn't you know it? Way to go, Jimmy. It's like whatever. It's like you're complaining about everything. Sometimes it feels like. It's not worth it. Let it go. Look at all the positives you have when you're at school, and the work you're doing, and the people you're surrounded with, and your mission, right? To make a difference every day, to be that hero. Focus on the things that you want to accomplish, not on what you feel is holding you back. They look petty, believe me, from my perspective in comparison, because I did some of those things too. But after watching my mom's fight with cancer, it seems petty. And I know we all do that. It's human nature. But we got to catch ourselves, and we got to try to rise above it. Why? Because we're role models to our kids, and we're trying to show them, like my mom showed us, we want to leave a legacy, something lasting that will show our kids that, you know what? You pull yourself up off the floor and you go at it again. Just like Thomas Edison said, you just keep going, man. 10,000 tries. Don't give up. Don't give up. There's a film clip I'll try to post on my resource page of Fred Astaire dancing, singing in the movie Singing in the Rain. It's a musical, and it's an old movie. Again, I'm old, I know. But you got to watch this little clip. It's about him dancing in the song Singing in the Rain, but his dance that really stands out. He was a great dancer. It's the most amazing dance and great piece of film history. It's just so great. But I want you to think of my mom when you watch Fred Astaire dancing and Singing in the Rain. And think about yourself. How do you look to your students, right? Are you moping like everybody else, staying inside, complaining about how bad the weather is? Or are you out there dancing in the rain? So that's what this podcast series has been about. I want to give you the power. I want you to feel powerful, that you can do it, that mindset, that no matter what challenges you face, that you're on a mission and that you're going to complete your mission, right? You're going to fight to the finish with your head up, smiling and laughing as often as you can, right? You're going to be like my mom and create a lasting legacy in all your students' lives and those that you teach, and the others that are watching you from the community or the parents or whoever, that you're sending a strong message that no matter what life throws at you, you'll be like my mom and dance in the rain. You'll model the way. So do me a favor. Keep listening. Share this with others. But truly learn how to dance in the rain and dance a masterpiece. Don't be glib. Dance a masterpiece with your teaching, because when it's gone, you want to hold your head up and say, oh my gosh, that was awesome. I'm so proud of my work and it feels great. And then you can also sometimes think about hopefully you left the legacy you left behind and what you hope is going to be passed on to other teachers and students as well. So with that in mind for now, I just want you to always remember, best year ever. You have the power to make it happen.